Alright, hello everyone, it's Gstar321 here again, and today, as you can see, I'm playing Diablo 1 Hellfire on the PC. And man, let me tell you guys, this game is absolutely fucking awesome. It nails it in terms of atmosphere, gameplay, music, and sheer horror. I've played all the Diablo games, Diablo 1, 2 and 3. Diablo 3 is my least favourite, Diablo 2 is my favourite, and close behind that is this one, Diablo 1 Hellfire. Now there's Diablo 1 and there's Diablo 1 Hellfire. Hellfire is an expansion to Diablo 1. Similar to what Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction is to Diablo 2, an expansion for it. And let me tell you guys, a very critical and I believe a compulsory expansion. Hellfire must be played. If you guys haven't played Diablo 1 at all, I would strongly recommend you skip playing the original Diablo 1 and play Diablo 1 Hellfire. I actually can't play Diablo 1 anymore without playing Diablo 1 Hellfire, the Hellfire expansion. It's a critical expansion and it must be played. Now, before I go into details about this game and start talking in depth about it, I'll just mention a bit of brief history about it. So, Diablo 1 on its own, not the Hellfire expansion, Diablo 1 came out back in 1996 for the PC, and there was a PlayStation port as well that came out in 1998. The expansion here, Hellfire, was released in 1997, and it was made by Sierra, not Blizzard, so it's a third-party expansion, if you will. But don't let that detract you. It is a great expansion. Hellfire introduces a new class you can play as, the Monk. The Monk is fantastic, and it's the class I'll be playing as for these walkthrough videos. So let me just quickly show you guys. If I go to New Hero, okay, look, just forget about the Bard and the Barbarian down here for now. If you play the original Diablo 1 without the Hellfire expansion, you'll only be able to play as the Warrior, Rogue, and Sorcerer. If you've got the Hellfire expansion, you'll be able to play as the Monk as well. Now the Bard and the Barbarian here, they are two unfinished classes. They're sort of like test classes that the developers were working on, but if you just install Diablo 1 Hellfire and open up the game, the Bard and the Barbarian will not be here. You can only unlock them by doing a trick, and it's what's known as the command.txt trick. How that works is, what you do, I'll put this in the description, but just in absolute simple terms, what you need to do is create a notepad file, call it command.txt, put it in the Hellfire directory where you install the game, and all you do in that notepad file, the command.txt file, is put in one line of text, and that will give you the Bard and the Barbarian as well. You can also get some new quests as well if you want, depending on what you put in that command.txt file, most notably the cow quest. A lot of people are familiar with the cow quest, but I've chosen not to include any of the extra quests. I've just included the Bard and the Barbarian here, just to show you guys that you can unlock them. But yeah, forget about that. I'll put it in the description if you want to know about the command.txt trick. But yeah, if you're just playing Hellfire, you'll get the Warrior, Rogue, Sorcerer, and the Monk. And like I said, the Monk kicks ass, and he's new to Hellfire here. Also in Diablo Hellfire, Diablo 1 Hellfire, we've got two new dungeon settings, the Hive and the Crypt. The Crypt for me is absolutely phenomenal. It is without a doubt my most favourite area of the whole game to go through. It kicks ass. The music is brilliant, the artwork, the design for it is fantastic. I'm going to really look forward to going through the Crypt, and it's actually what I believe to be the hardest area in the game to go through. It's a bit of a challenge. It's a tough Tough area to go through, the crypt, but great nonetheless. Also, with the Hellfire expansion, you get some new quests, you get extra items such as oils and runes, you get new spells, new shrines, new affixes for weapons and armor, new monsters, and so on and so on. Even Diablo 1, even Diablo, the final boss, is a bit stronger here in the Hellfire expansion. And also, another great feature here with the Hellfire expansion is the ability to jog in town. If you guys have played Diablo 1 on its own, you'll know how bloody annoying it can get when all you want to do is come back to town, stock up on potions, and then go straight back into the dungeon and resume where you were, killing shit. However, in town in Diablo 1, you can only slowly walk. So to buy potions, you have to slowly walk to the appropriate NPC, buy the potions, slowly walk to the blacksmith, repair your items, and so on and so on. It takes time, and it's extremely frustrating because, like I said, you just want to get straight back into the action. So with Hellfire here, you can run in town, making your trips in town short and how they should be. So that's good. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about here. Let's get straight into it. I'm going to create a new hero, and I will be playing as the monk. Excellent class. G-star 321. And here we go. Also, in Hellfire, you can choose what difficulty you want to play on. And you can go straight to hell if you want on a new character, a level 1 character. You can play the game on hell immediately. You don't have to clear normal or nightmare first. You can jump straight into hell. But I would strongly advise against that. It is disgraceful. Hell is tough. There is no way you can do it with a level 1 character. I would strongly recommend you play through on normal first, then nightmare, and then hell. In Diablo 1, you can't actually choose a difficulty. Diablo 1 without the Hellfire expansion. You can only play Diablo 1 on normal difficulty. Once you complete the game, that is it. There is no nightmare or hell difficulty, which sucks, making Hellfire another reason to play instead of the original Diablo 1. There is a bit of a workaround in Diablo 1, and you can actually play on Nightmare and Hell, but it's a hassle to get it working, alright? So just play Hellfire, guys, trust me, it kicks ass, it's way better. So prior to doing these walkthrough videos, I've played the game about 4 or 5 times. I played through as the warrior on normal, I played through as the monk on normal, the monk on nightmare, and the monk on hell. So I have gone through the game on hell difficulty. I also played as the Sorcerer a while back, but yeah. So hell is brutal. It's inhuman. I could do, I was gonna do a walkthrough on hell difficulty, but it's just too taxing and laborious. I just want to have a bit of fun playing the game, and as I go through the game on normal, I'm just going to play it on normal here for these walkthrough videos. I'm going to talk about all the strategies needed to get through hell anyway, so if you guys choose to play on hell, you'll be in good shape to get through it. This is with the monk class only. I've only I don't think I've mastered him, but I've gotten through the game on hell with him, so I feel I'm in a pretty good position to talk about how the monk plays and the tips and strategies used to get through the game on the higher difficulty settings such as hell and even nightmare. So without further ado, guys, let's get straight into it. Let's play Diablo 1 Hellfire on the PC as the monk on the normal difficulty setting. Here we go. Fuck yeah, and there is that awesome classic Tristram music. Matt Uelmen composed all the music for this game, an absolute legend. This is one of the most memorable pieces of music for me in any video game. Alright, good, so this guy is here. I always check before playing through the game that this wounded townsman is here, because if he's here, once you talk to him, he's going to give us the quest involving the butcher. The butcher quest for me, and I believe a lot of people, is probably the most iconic quest in the whole game. I actually can't play this game without doing the butcher quest. Sometimes if you start the game, this wounded townsman won't be here, and it's because this game randomizes the quests that you get, so each playthrough is different. There's a way it works. Quests belong to what's known as quest groups, and you'll get a certain amount of quests from each quest group. You can look online into how that works. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but yeah, that's good. We've got the wounded townsman here. Alright, so look guys, this is just going to be an intro/tutorial video. I'm not going to get into the action until the next video. I want to really just focus on what the monk is all about, how to play the game, and so on, because I think it's really important. I mean, you can easily just jump straight into the game as the warrior class. The warrior is probably a good class for new players to the game, and you can go straight down into the dungeon and start just pointing and clicking, killing enemies, hacking away at them with your sword. But to really play this game, you've got to know how it works, alright? So I'm going to spend a bit of time here talking about that. I think it's important if you want to play the game effectively, especially on Nightmare and Hell difficulty. Firstly, the first thing I want to say is it's different to, I'll use Diablo 2 as the example, and I'll use the Necromancer as the example as well. So if you guys have played Diablo 2, and say you're playing as the Necromancer class, he has a skill tree, alright? And he can put points into certain skills, such as Raise Skeleton, Raise Clay Golem, Poison Dagger, and so on and so on. Those skills are unique to the Necromancer. The other classes in Diablo 2, such as the Barbarian, the Paladin, and so on, they can't raise skeletons, they can't raise clay golems. It's unique to the Necromancer. So each of the classes in Diablo 2 has a skill tree of skills which they can put points into, making them unique. In Diablo 1 here, there is no skill tree. There are no skills for each class. Each class is the same, but they're not the same. And I'll explain why. Each class, how this game works is, there are spells. You can see it says spells here. Every class in this game can effectively learn the same spell. So for example, the Sorcerer, which is mainly the mage class, you know, the wizard sort of class, he can cast a spell called Fireball. The Warrior class can also cast a spell called Fireball. The Rogue can also cast a Fireball. The Monk can also cast Fireball. So all the classes in this game can use the same spells. There are no skills, there are only spells to learn, and as long as you have the mana requirement to cast those spells and learn them in the first place, you can use those spells. So, I mean, it's a bit hard to explain, but the thing is, the Sorcerer really is a spell casting class. And if I press C here, you can see we've got these attributes: strength, magic, dexterity, and vitality. The more points you put into magic, that will raise how much mana you have, which, like I said, is needed for casting spells and learning them in the first place. There's a limit to how many points you can put into each one of these attributes depending on the class you're playing as. So for the Monk, I can only put a max of 80 points into magic. The base column here, that will only be 80 max. It can't go any higher. The now column represents, you know, if you're wearing, for example, like a cap and it gives you +5 to magic, then if this is 80 here, this will say 85 because of the +5 to magic on that cap you're wearing. So that's the thing here, alright? The Sorcerer, however, the amount of points he can put into magic here for the base column is 250. So he can cast much more advanced spells and he can learn much more advanced spells, which the monk can't. There's a really powerful spell in this game called the Apocalypse spell, and the magic requirement to learn that spell in the first place is very, very high. I believe you need 150 magic to learn that spell. So as the monk, because I'm only going to get a max of 80 here in magic, I can't even learn that spell in the first place, you know what I mean? So that's the difference between the classes. It depends. The difference is the amount of points you can put into each attribute here. They all have a max value that you can do. So with the warrior, the amount of strength you can get, I believe, is 250. As the max, as the monk here, it's 150, and so on. So look, back on the spells. To learn a spell, you need to read spell books. You'll find spell books throughout the main game as you're in the dungeons killing shit, and you just right click on the book to learn that spell. Each spell book has a magic requirement. So look, I'll just talk to Adria the Witch here. There's a lot of NPCs in town here in Tristram. Each serves a different purpose. I'll talk about that in a minute.
I sense a soul in search of answers.
Yep, love that. So let's go to buy items. She mostly sells mana potions, scrolls. I'll talk about scrolls in a minute. But she also sells books on occasion. So yeah, here's one. Book of Mana Shield. So Mana Shield is a spell. And whoops, didn't mean to exit out. You can see how it says required 25 magic. So to read that book, we need 25 magic. I do not have 25 magic at the moment. I only have 15. So I'm going to have to put points into magic when I level up. As you level up, I'm only on level 1 at the moment. Once I get to level 2, I will net myself 5 points, which I can disperse into any of these 4 attributes. I could put 4 points into strength if I want, and 1 into magic. I could put all my points, all 5 points into dexterity. I could put 1 into each, and then another 1 in whatever, strength, for example. So it's up to you how you want to disperse the points. But for the monk, the 2 key attributes you want to put points into are dexterity and magic. That's it. Fuck vitality and fuck strength. I'll talk about why a bit later. So yeah, as long as you have the magic requirement to read the book, then you will learn that spell. All of your learned spells will be in your spell book, and that's accessed by pressing B on the keyboard. So if I go through the pages of my spell book, I have nothing at the moment except this, the search skill. It's a spell, the search spell. Each class has a unique skill or unique spell that they start off with in their spell book, and it costs no mana to use. So I can cast the search spell infinitely, and it will not deplete my mana here one bit. So with the monk, the search spell allows him to, if you're in the dungeons and you kill a monster and the monster drops gold and an item, in Diablo 1 you can't see the items on the ground. You sort of have to move your mouse cursor around the ground like this, and only when the pointer is over that item it will say what it is. If you guys have played Diablo 2, you will know that you can just hold the Alt key and that will highlight all the dropped items on the ground. You can't do that here in Diablo 1 or Diablo 1 Hellfire. But with the monk's search skill, search spell, it will highlight the items on the ground for you. So that's good. If you're playing as the warrior class, his unique skill is he can repair his own weapons and armor and so on. So if you look at this, I've got a short staff weapon at the moment. The monk is the master of staves. I'll talk about that a bit later as well. Damage, as you can see down below, 2 to 4. and it's got Dur, which stands for durability, 25 out of 25. The more and more you use this weapon in the dungeons and kill enemies, the durability of the item will decrease. So it will go down to 24 out of 25, 23 out of 25, 22 out of 25, and it will eventually go down to 0 out of 25 unless you repair it, okay? And you can repair it from the blacksmith here in town, Griswold, or if you're the warrior class, his unique skill or spell is he can repair the durability himself. That's his unique skill, spell, okay? If you let an item's durability go all the way down to 0, you're fucked. You completely lose that item, it's destroyed, and it disappears. It'll be like this. I'll just open up my inventory, and I'll be like, what the fuck? Where'd my weapon go? It disappears, it vanishes. It doesn't even go to the floor. It's gone, alright? So you need to make sure you keep the durability of your items in check. Otherwise you will lose it. And it can be very frustrating because it's happened to me in the past. I've had a great weapon and I've neglected to repair it, either from Griswold, the blacksmith here in town, or as the warrior myself, and I've lost it. Very, very annoying. For the rogue class, her unique spell or skill is she can disarm traps. When you go into the dungeons and you kick open barrels, hit open barrels or open chests, sometimes there'll be traps, you know, like an arrow will shoot you from a wall next to it and you'll take a bit of damage. With the rogue you can disarm those traps, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. The traps barely do any damage in the first place. So the rogue, for me, sucks. I hate the rogue class. Now, whew, God, I've barely even scratched the surface, have I? And I've been talking for quite a while. So yeah, that's how spells work. Like I said, press B to bring up your spell book. All I've got is the search skill, the search spell. Now, if you press the S key on your keyboard, that will bring up a set of icons of all the spells you've got, and you can sort of hotkey them from this area. So if I press F5 on the keyboard, you can see how it's got F5 there now, and if I press F5, watch down here. Bang, I've just hotkeyed that spell and it's now ready for use. To cast a spell, you right click the mouse.
I cannot cast that here.
Yep, I can't cast the spell in town. I have to be down into the dungeons to do it. So you can hotkey up to 4 spells at a time with the keys F5, F6, F7 and F8. In Diablo 2 I believe you could hotkey a lot more. You could use the keys F1 through to F8, maybe even F12, I'm not sure. So yeah, it can be a bit annoying only being able to hotkey 4 spells at a time, because it's pretty annoying in the midst of battle, you know, if you want to use a spell while you're like, you know, you'll be running away from an enemy like this and you'll press S on the keyboard, oh fuck, okay, where's the spell, click that, alright, it's ready, now right click, you know. So hotkeying is just, it just makes it easier. You press the appropriate F key on the keyboard and you ready that spell for use. Now, if I press C, that will bring up my character's stats. So you can, there's all the shortcuts, you know, C to bring up the character stats, I to bring up your inventory. That will show you what weapon you have equipped, your armor, gold and whatever items you've got in your backpack here, so to speak. Spells here, look, it's got the hotkeys there, B. Alright, map, you press tab, but you can't use the map in town. Escape for the menu. Oh, that's right, that's what I want to show you. See how we're walking pretty fast? Look, I'll show you what Diablo 1 is like. Here's the jog feature, and look, walk. This is what it's like playing Diablo 1. Look at this. Imagine coming back from a dungeon and all you want to do is stock up on healing potions because you've got like no health left. What you've got to do is this. Ah, fuck, alright, I've got to go to the NPC that sells health potions. He's over here. Walk, walk, fucking come on, hurry up. Come on. God, get up there.
What ails you,
and there
my
he
friend?
is. You can buy health potions from Pepin the Healer. Alright, so let's just buy one. Why not? But in Hellfire, all we need to do is set it to jog, and that is much better, guys. Much better, believe me. And you can also press Q on the keyboard. That will bring up the current list of quests you have. We don't have any yet. Our first quest will be the Butcher quest. We'll get it from the Wounded Townsman up ahead. So, I want to touch up on the character stats here. Like I said before, we've got Strength, Magic, Dexterity, and Vitality. Putting points into Strength will increase the damage you do, and it will allow you to wear heavier armor. So for example, later on in the game we'll start finding better armor, you know, like Gothic plates, Ornate plates, Splint mail and so on. But to wear the stronger armor, the better armor, there's usually always a strength requirement. For example, on that piece of armor it will say required strength 50, and of course we only have 25 strength, so we wouldn't be able to wear it, which sucks. But the monk is a unique class in the fact that he actually gets a penalty from wearing higher class armor, like Gothic plates, Ornate plates, Splint mail and so on. So this is our defense here. It's called armor class in this game, but you can just think of it as defense. If I found a piece of armor, say it was just like a set of rags, the most basic armor in the game, rags or a robe, and it gave me 7 defense or 7 to armor class, and I put it on, this would say 14. Alright, so I've got 7 at the moment, and if I put on the rags with 7 to defense or 7 to armor class, I would gain 14 here. So I would get 14 defense or 14 to armor class. If, however, as the monk, I found a Gothic plate, for example, and it gave me 50 defense or 50 armor class, and I put that on, say I had the strength requirement to wear it, you would think you would get 7 plus the 50 to your armor class. Wrong. Of course that would be the case for the warrior or the rogue or the sorcerer, but it is not the case for the monk. He gets a penalty for wearing heavier armor. So that might even just say 27 or something. I'm not sure. There's a formula online which tells you how it works it out if you're interested in looking that up. But yeah, just take note that the monk is best when he's wearing low level armor such as rags, robes, and even no armor at all. So that's a strange thing associated with the monk. Just take note of that, it's very important. Now, magic. The more points you put into magic, that will obviously increase your mana, which is needed to cast spells, and you need magic to actually learn the spells in the first place, because the books do have magic requirements to read. And I believe putting more points into magic will do some other small things, like it will increase your spell cast rate from memory and things like that. But the main thing is it increases your mana, so you can cast spells more frequently and you can get better spells. That's very important as the monk, because hopefully I'll be finding a book. Well, Adria, we just saw it before, she was selling the book of Mana Shield. Mana Shield is a fantastic spell. I'm going to see if it's still there actually. It should be.
I sense a soul in search of answers.
Yeah, but I can't afford it. Look at that, 16,000 gold it costs. I've only got 50. So Mana Shield, there's quite a few spells I'll be focusing on as the monk, and I'll talk about them as we go through the game. I won't go too in depth here about them for this tutorial video, but I'll just mention the Mana Shield spell. What that does is, it allows you to take damage from your mana as opposed to your life. So in effect, my mana will be my life as the monk. So that's why I'm not going to be putting any points into vitality. Putting points into vitality increases your red life here, your main life. Fuck that, because this is going to be my life. I will be putting points into magic. You see? Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So yeah, that is magic. Dexterity is, I would say it is the most important attribute to put points into as the monk. Dexterity increases your chance to hit an enemy. It increases your chance to block an enemy's attack. And the more and more points you put into it, it will actually increase your damage a bit and your armor class as well, your defense. So dexterity is a great attribute to put points into. As the monk, that is. It's fucking useless to put points into dexterity as the sorcerer. Well, no, it would increase his chance to block enemy attacks, which is good. But for melee characters like the monk and the warrior, dexterity is pretty important. But for the monk, it is extremely important. Why? Well, the monk excels at using staves as his main weapon of choice. Because if you don't, like say if I just equipped a sword and a shield as the monk, my chance to hit and my chance to block would be drastically reduced. But with the staff, that increases your chance to hit and block much better, because the monk is built for staves. Alright? Take note of that. It is very important to use staves as weapons, as your main weapon as a monk. Don't use anything else, trust me. And he also, if you equip him with a staff, his attack speed is incredible. It's phenomenal. It is very, very fast. Whereas if you were using a sword or whatever, it would be a bit slower. The monk also has a unique thing associated with him where he can actually, this is if you're using a staff as well, another reason to use a staff as the monk, he can actually hit 3 enemies at once with a staff. Whereas, you know, if you're playing as the warrior, he can only focus on hitting 1 enemy at once. So, look guys, if you're a monk class, use a staff as the weapon. That's all I'm going to say, trust me. So dexterity is very important because it will increase your chance to hit with the staff, it'll increase your chance to block with the staff, and like I said, over time you'll get a bit of a gain to your damage and defense, your armor class. Vitality, putting points into that will just increase your life. Not really important as the monk. I will be putting 0 points into this, because like I said, my life will effectively be my mana, thanks to the mana shield spell. As a warrior, you're probably going to be putting points into your life quite a bit here. But as the monk, it's not necessary. I also won't be putting any points into strength as the monk, because strength is only required if you're going to be using high level armor, wearing high level armor. But like I said, as the monk, you take a penalty hit from wearing high level armor. So it's pointless to even gain the strength requirement to wear that high level armor, because you will get better defense, a better armor class rating from wearing low level armor or none at all. So magic and dexterity are the only 2 attributes I'll be focusing on as the monk. And down here we've got magic resistance, fire resistance, and lightning resistance. It's always good to get them up. You can gain resistances by finding rings, you know, and that might say plus 10 to all resistances, and this will go to 10, this will go to 10, and this will go to 10%. Or it'll just be on some armor or your helmet or even a weapon in some cases. It's very important to get these up, especially for Nightmare and Hell difficulty, because it's brutal, you know. The monk is a great melee class. He fucks up enemies hardcore with the staff at close range. But he's also pretty good at using spells as well. Not as good as the sorcerer, obviously, but he's a lot better than the warrior. That's for sure, in terms of casting spells. The warrior doesn't have much magic at all, and I believe he can only put 50 points into magic, the warrior. Whereas with the monk it's 80, so he gets a lot more magic. So he has more flexibility within the spells that he can use and learn compared to the warrior. I'm not sure about the rogue. Fuck the rogue, I hate that class. So I can't compare with the rogue. So yeah, you'll notice here as well that there's no cold resistance, resist cold. That's because there are no cold spells in this game. There's only magic, fire and lightning spells. Some of the enemies later on will start shooting out fire or lightning or magic at you, and it can be quite difficult to deal with as the monk. Your worst enemies will be the spellcaster type enemies like advocates and succubi, or succubi, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but we'll encounter them later on in the game, not so much earlier on. And it's pretty hard because they're spellcasters, they'll stand at a distance and cast like fireballs or lightning spells or magic spells at you, and you've got to sort of get in close and try and hit them. But with the monk, I'm just going to have a few spells of my own and, maybe just shoot out fireball at them. That's a great spell to get, fireball. Or stone curse. That's probably the most important spell you can get as a monk. Stone curse freezes enemies in place, so you can just go up to them and start attacking them and kill them. They can't run off, Spellcaster enemies will run off, and it can be pretty hard to chase after them like this, because in the dungeons you can't actually jog. It's only in town that you can jog. In the dungeons you can only walk around like this. So you can imagine how frustrating it gets when you've got a spellcaster that's over here shooting a fireball at you, and then when you get close they just run off or even teleport sometimes in the case of the advocate enemies, and you've got to keep chasing them. It's really, really frustrating, alright? So there's a few spells which I'll be focusing on and talking about that will allow you to tackle those sorts of enemies a lot easier if you're playing as the monk, and perhaps even the warrior too. So, I think I've spoken enough. Yeah, so like I said earlier on, you read the books that will net you the spell, and you'll gain that spell in your spell book here. It'll appear on one of the pages. There's 5 pages of spells to collect. I'm not going to get all of them because I'm the monk, and there's certain spells, most notably the Apocalypse spell. There's no way I'll be able to get that. Look, you probably can learn it if you've maxed out your magic here and you've got 80 points into it, and for the now column it says 150, and that's boosted by items, giving you like plus 10 to magic here, plus 15 to magic for your hat or whatever. You might be able to read the Book of Apocalypse and learn it, but for the most part I'm not going to be doing that. Alright, I doubt I'm going to be finding many items, especially on normal, which will allow me to learn high level spells. So I'll just be focusing on a few spells as the monk, and I'll talk about that as we go on. So, I was just talking about something, but I forgot. I was going to say something. Oh, that's right, yeah. Spell books, you learn the spell. There's also scrolls, alright? So if I go down here to Adria the Witch again, she not only sells spell books, but scrolls. Scrolls are spells as well.
I sense a soul in search of answers.
So, see? Scroll of Lightning, Scroll of Search. No need for me to buy the Scroll of Search. I already have that spell as the monk. Scroll of Identify. Yeah, so let's take the Scroll of Lightning. Yeah, I don't have enough gold to buy it. When you buy a scroll, it will appear in one of your slots, either here in your belt or here in your inventory. The scroll is the same thing, like it's a spell, you can either buy the Book of Lightning and learn the lightning spell, or you can buy the Scroll of Lightning. If you have a scroll for a certain spell, like the Scroll of Lightning, and you right click on that scroll to cast that spell, so in the case of the Scroll of Lightning, the lightning spell, you will cast the lightning spell without having actually learned that spell. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? Without even reading the Book of Lightning. you can cast that spell via the scroll. So you can actually cast the lightning spell simply by right clicking on that scroll, and it will cost no mana to do so either. For me personally, I think scrolls for the most part are useless except for a few. There's a few spells which I tend to keep scrolls for, most notably the Scroll of Golem. That summons a golem that will accompany you and attack enemies for you, which is pretty helpful sometimes. But for the most part, scrolls are pretty useless because you can only cast that spell once. Once you right click on it and you cast that spell, so for example, lightning, the Scroll of Lightning. Once you right click on that scroll, you cast lightning, the lightning spell, that's it. You lose the scroll, it's gone. You can't cast lightning anymore unless you have read the book and it appears here in your spell book. You've learnt that spell, so to speak. So scrolls are different in that they're one-time use spells only, and they cost you no mana to... Well, hang on. I still believe there's a magic requirement to actually to use the scroll, but when you use it, it doesn't cost you any mana, you know what I mean? Like if you just cast the lightning spell on its own, if you've learnt the lightning spell by the spell book and you cast lightning, it might deplete your mana to about here, you know, it might cost you 20 mana to use that spell. But if you use the Scroll of Lightning, this will still be full, it won't cost you anything. However, there is still a magic requirement to use scrolls. So you can't just buy Scrolls of Apocalypse, for example, the most powerful spell in the game, and cast those. There is still a hefty magic requirement to use those scrolls. But once you do it, it won't cost you any mana. Let me just check here. See, Scroll of Firewall, for example, that's a spell, required 17 magic to use. So we don't even have 17 magic yet, but no worries, we will get that a bit later on. But once you cast Firewall, this mana will not deplete at all. So I think that's it for the spells, guys. I've spoken about the attributes. I've spoken about the perks of the monk. You know, the fact that he should focus on using staves because he's a lot better using them. He attacks faster. His attack rating is better. He blocks. You know, his chance to block is better, and he can hit 3 enemies at once with the staff in a sweeping attack. That's all good. And we're in Tristram at the moment, and this is the main town. There's a bunch of NPCs here. I'll quickly go over what they do. Pepin the healer.
What ails you, my friend?
If you come back from a dungeon and your life is like down here, and you click on Pepin, he will completely restore your health, which is good. So I tend to do that a bit. And you can mainly just buy potions from him, potions of healing, or potions of rejuvenation, which will replenish both your health and your mana. Later on, Pepin will start selling elixirs, which are very good because there's the elixir of strength, the elixir of magic, the elixir of dexterity, and the elixir of vitality. Elixirs cost quite a bit, 5,000 gold per elixir. So say if I bought the elixir of strength and it appeared here in this slot and I right clicked on it to drink it, it would permanently increase my strength by 1, so that would be 26. So I'm going to increase my strength as the monk, but only in the form of elixirs, because, you know, strength is actually pretty good to get up because it will increase your damage a bit. So that's good, yeah. But I'm not going to be putting any of my points, you know, once I level up and I gain my 5 points to distribute into these attributes, I'm not going to be spending any of those points by putting them into strength. It will only be magic and dexterity as the monk. But as the warrior, it's quite important to put points into strength, that's for sure. Griswold the blacksmith here.
Whoa, what can
Very
I do
important
for you?
NPC. You can buy items from him like weapons and armor and so on. I never do that because you always find stuff in the dungeons. But he's very important to come and speak to because you can repair your items. Remember, you need to keep the durability up or you will eventually lose that item. And it costs a bit to repair items, but if you're the warrior, you can just cast that durability skill or spell yourself, which you have, and it will cost you nothing. Cain the Elder. I mean, all these NPCs, they give you quests as well. Cain can...
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
Stay a while and listen. He can identify items for you. It's pretty important to do that because as you go through the dungeons, you'll find swords, you'll find pieces of armor, you'll find helmets and so on, rings, and they will say unidentified. They won't show you what affixes they have associated with them, you know, whether that be +3 to magic or +5 to damage or whatever. In order to see those affixes and actually use the item, you need to identify those items, and Deckard Cain here can do that for a price. Or if you're lucky, you can find Scrolls of Identify and cast that spell yourself on the unidentified item and it will identify it. I don't think you can learn the Identify spell. You can't find spell books for Identify, which sucks. And I think that's the case with a few spells. I'm not sure. I know in Diablo 1 without Hellfire you couldn't actually find the Book of Apocalypse, but here with the Hellfire expansion you can. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't find any books, you know, books of Identify. You can't learn that spell. You can only use the scrolls. But I just basically, you know, if I'm in the dungeons, I just have this all full, and when I'm ready I come back to town and just identify them all by Cain. If they're shit, I sell them to Griswold and I get some nice gold for it. If not, I use them. Ogden over here, he basically just gives you quests and talks shit. Jillian the barmaid, she gives you quests and talks shit. I don't think she gave you any quests in Diablo 1 itself without the Hellfire expansion, but here I know for a fact she gives you one specific quest. But other than that, she is useless. Up here we've got Wirt, the peg-legged boy. Hate this guy.
Over here.
Because, I mean, just to see what he's got for sale, it costs you 50 gold. Fuck off. Most of the time it's absolute rubbish, or if it's not rubbish, it's so overpriced, it's out of reach in terms of how much, you know, it's too expensive to buy the stuff he has. Sure, there may be some good stuff he sells occasionally, but personally I find it's totally not necessary to even go up there and speak to him, because it's either A, bullshit items, rubbish, or B, too fucking expensive. So fuck Wirt, I hate him. Down here we've got Farnham the Drunk. Absolutely no purpose to the game except talking absolute bullshit. That's it. And yeah, Adria the Witch is down there. We saw her before. I'll be seeing her quite a bit throughout these walkthrough videos because she sells mana potions, scrolls, and books. And staves as well. She can also recharge your staves. I forgot to mention that.
I sense a soul
So as you can
in
see,
search of
recharge
answers.
staves. Now, on certain staves, they will have spells attached to them. So for example, this could have been the short staff of Fireball, for example. And down below, like under damage and durability, it would have said something like charges for Fireball 15 out of 15. That means this staff has temporarily given me the Fireball spell to cast 15 times. After that, I can't cast Fireball, unless I've learnt it as a spell myself. And to recharge your staff, so to speak, so that you can recast Fireball another 15 times, you know, get 15 out of 15 charges,
I sense
you
a
come
soul
here
in
and
search of
recharge the
answers.
staff through Adria, the Witch. So that's good. And if we go up here, we've got Lester the Farmer. He's new to Hellfire. He will give us a quest later on in regards to going through one of the new areas in Hellfire, the Hive. Pretty cool area. I like the Hive, but it's still got nothing on the Crypt. The Crypt is the best. Okay, so before I get into the game, I just want to make sure I've spoken about everything. I don't want to leave anything out, because I know I went on for a while, guys, but I feel everything I've just said has been pretty important in, you know, understanding this game. Especially if you plan on playing on the higher difficulty settings like Nightmare and Hell. You got to know this shit. So I've spoken about the attributes. Yeah, you can see here we've got 2,000 experience points needed to get to the next level. I've got no experience at the moment. I'm only on level 1. I've got 50 gold. Yep, that's fine. Inventory. Yep. Spellbook, I've spoken about that. S to bring up the spells, to ready them, so you can just choose one and equip it, ready to go. Or hotkey them, whatever you want. Alright, I think we're good, guys. Let's do it. First I'm going to talk to Ogden. He usually just talks a bit of shit to start off with, so let's have a chat.
Thank goodness you returned. Much has changed since you lived here, my friend. All was peaceful until the Dark Riders came and destroyed our village. Many were cut down where they stood, and those who took up arms were slain or dragged away to become slaves, or worse. The church at the edge of town has been desecrated and is being used for dark rituals. The screams that echo in the night are inhuman, but some of our townsfolk may yet survive. Follow the path that lies between my tavern and the blacksmith's shop to find the church and save who you can. Perhaps I can tell you more if we speak again. Good luck.
Alright, so the church he's talking about is up here. That was where the wounded townsman was, lying outside the front of it. So Diablo 1, if you're not playing the Hellfire expansion, Diablo 1 just consists of going into this church here and going down level after level after level after level. There are 16 levels in total. Diablo is on the 16th level. Once you kill him, that's it, the game is over. But with Hellfire, we've got the Hive and the Crypt. The Crypt is over here, and the Hive is down. It's further down, I'll show you later on. So we've got some new areas to go through here in Hellfire, which is much better. Alright, so let's talk to the wounded townsman. He'll give us our first quest, the Butcher.
Please, listen to me. The Archbishop Lazarus. He led us down here to find the lost prince. The bastard led us into a trap. Now everyone is dead, killed by a demon he called the Butcher. Avenge us! Find this Butcher and slay him, so that our souls may finally rest.
And now that we have our first quest, if I press Q on the keyboard or click on quests over here, it will bring up what quest we have active, and if you click on it,
please,
it'll just replay the dialogue again. So, I think we're good to go, guys. I've spoken about everything I wanted to speak about, and if in the event that I have forgotten about something, I'll just talk about it as we go on through the game. So, basically, I'll leave it here, guys, and I'll see you in the next video, where we start going down into the dungeons. I'm out.